All right, let's talk about Israel's decision on a political, public relations, and also on a security level with tonight's panel. Joining us is former U.S. Naval Intelligence Officer John Jordan and Middle East analyst Thane Rosenbaum. Thank you both. Thane, let's start with you here in studio, and let's focus on the domestic political aspect of this, because granted, there are a lot of political angles, but I want to start off by getting your response to Benny Gantz taking this as an opportunity to criticize and condemn Prime Minister Netanyahu. How do you think that goes over?
Well, he needed to do this, Michelle. Remember, in the last election, the criticism on Gantz is that he was bland and he was almost identical to Prime Minister Netanyahu, specifically on national security issues. So for here, this, and also Netanyahu has been able to extol all of his diplomatic initiatives around the world as this diplomat. And so here, notice what Gantz is saying. You have ruined our reputation in the international community. You're not so sophisticated in how you're dealing with other countries, especially our ally. And also, you've damaged us. And so, therefore, all of the talk about your being the national security prime minister, I'm a former defenseman, chief of staff, and I know what you've done here causes damage. So I think that we know, look, Gantz in this election needs to say if Netanyahu says it's raining, he has to say it's sunny. But in this case, he's got a point, because these are two areas that are strengths of the prime minister, and in this case, they could be perceived as a failing.
Well, look, the move to deny them entry was supported by many in Israel, at least from the reactions that we've ascertained so far, keeping in mind these two women were seeking to harm Israel. So a lot of Israelis were in support of the fact of not letting people that want to come and harm the country into the country. But do you think that Gantz does have a point that this did do international damage to Israel, which is indeed a beacon of democracy in the region? Has it taken away some of Israel's light in that regard?
I don't think it did international damage. I do think it caused some damage in the American domestic scene, because frankly, Israel needs people like me coming on Michelle McCory's show and saying, this is a democracy. This is not one of the 22 failed Arab states, terroristic states, theocratic states, unstable states. This is an open, liberal, pluralistic society. So this undermines that argument. On the other hand, they may be...
It doesn't, Thane, because as we pointed out, other democracies, including the United States, have banned people from entering the country that seek to do it harm.
And, but let me just, I agree. And in fact, there's an argument that hasn't even been made yet, I think, which is to say they're not even, at least Tlaib, is not entering on a diplomatic capacity at all. She's in some parts there to visit her grandmother. Right. And you're not acting in a diplomatic capacity if you're taking a BDS position, because the BDS position is saying, we don't think you should exist. We don't believe in your existence itself. So normally you don't receive diplomatic status by taking the position that the country you want to visit shouldn't be a country at all.
John, let's put politics aside for now and focus on the security issues of this trip, because given how volatile the region is, there were serious concerns that this could have incited some round of violence had Omar and Tlaib insisted, for example, on visiting the Temple Mount, which is always a tinderbox in the region, that it could have resulted in some kind of violent demonstration, that it could have been used by Palestinian leaders to incite violence, as Temple Mount visits have been used in the past. So as bad as this may be politically for Israel, John, could this visit have resulted in something way worse from a security perspective?
Well, I suppose anything's possible, Michelle, but I don't think so. This is a political matter, and basically, Prime Minister Netanyahu, he did err by denying them the permission to come into Israel. They should have just, even though they're difficult people from Israel's point of view, they've been far better served to let them come in and not give them this platform. President Trump was right. This was a setup. All that happened here is it enabled these ladies, the squad, to give them a platform to screech, to spread their venom, and it would have been better just to let them come and be done with it. I don't think this is particularly going to be particularly significant in Israel, but this is more important in the United States, and it just gave these ladies a bigger platform. But I think 3 days from now, we're not going to be talking about this.
All right. I mean, what would have been the worst scenario had, and I mean politically, not from a security perspective, John? I mean, what would have been the worst scenario had these congresswomen been allowed to visit Israel, do you think?
The worst thing that could have happened is had they gone into some of these communities and had they brought TV cameras with them and had they created some sort of media event that would have had repercussions longer than just a visit. But I think Israel was always in a position to prevent that, and by denying it and going back and forth on Twitter, it's only played into these ladies' hands.
And you seem to concur with that position, Thane.
Absolutely. I think I winced when I saw on your report earlier what Omar's position was. I thought Israel was a democracy. I thought that's why we support this ally, because it's democratic values.
Israel is a democracy.
I hate that she had an opportunity. There's no question. There's no question.
But I will point out, Thane, that democracies, including the democracy of the United States of America, also bans members of parliament from other countries from entering the country on a variety of different grounds.
Not always wisely.
Not always wisely. I'll let you have the last word on that one, John. Thank you so much, John Jordan, Thane Rosenbaum. Appreciate it.